Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I will show you how to craft this beautiful castle gate with a working drawbridge and portcullis. This build is really cheap because it will be mainly composed of XPS Foam. And as you can see, it will also be super modular. This is my biggest video so far, so if you like this build and like this idea, please don't hesitate to subscribe and to like this video. We are a bit more than 1k on the channel and I want to thank you all for the support. And now, without further ado, let's start this video. For this build, you will need some XPS foam, some wooden dowels and some ice cream sticks, as well as some wooden coffee stirrers. For all the wooden parts, the one I prefer I made out of bamboo. Next, you will need some tacky glue. A hot glue gun is not mandatory, but it could help, and you will also need different craft paints. For this specific build, you will need at least some brown, some grey and some white. And if you want to make the roof out of slates, I will advise you to buy some petrol blue. And one shade of each color will be sufficient for this build because we'll use the white to make some new tints. And finally, you will need some decorative sand, some granules, some flat cardboard from a cereal box and a few shades of metallic craft paint. For this build, I will use some silver and some graphite. The first step of this build will be to cut a big rectangle of XPS foam. Here, I made a piece of 21 cm by 11 cm and the width is 6 cm. Then I will trace the entrance by starting at 7 cm from each side of the rectangle. For the height, I will trace a line of approximately 5 cm. And then, to make the arch of the entrance, I will use a compass, but you can also make it freehandly. And then, I will use my proxon to cut the entrance. If you don't have one, you can always use a sharp knife. If you do so, please be extra careful to not cut yourself. You can keep the piece you just cut because it will be useful on a later stage. In my initial plan, I was using this roller in order to make some stonework on the upper part of the castle gates. But you will see that I finally changed my mind and cover it completely with wooden parts. For the next step, I will simply draw the shape of the entrance on a piece of paper. Here, the idea is simply to have a reference in order to make the portcullis. Of course, the portcullis will need to be a bit higher than the entrance itself. For the bars of the portcullis, I will simply use some barbecue skewers. If you don't have any, you can also use some wooden dowel and use a pencil sharpener in order to do the spike at the end. It will give you a far more massive portcullis. For the vertical bars, you can use the other end of the barbecue skewers because you will not need any spike on it. Of course, you can eyeball everything, but on my side I prefer to mark every pieces. Then you can cut everything to size. If you want to go quicker, you can also cut only one piece to use it as a reference for all the other ones. And here, I will simply rinse and repeat for all the vertical bars. Before gluing everything together, I will use those small pieces in order to adjust all the gaps between the bars. To glue everything together, I will simply use some white glue. Take your time when doing that. The best way to do it is simply to glue one and to wait for it to be fully dried before moving to all the other bars. While the first bar is drying, you can make sure that everything is fully square. And then again, you can rinse and repeat for all the other bars. This whole process is really super easy to do, but it can be super tricky to get everything perfectly square. So again, don't hesitate to take your time and to wait for each bar to be fully dry before moving to the next one. And once fully dried, your portcullis should look like that. And now we'll move to the drawbridge. In order to do the basis, we'll use some square wooden dowels. Again, before gluing anything, make sure that every piece is perfectly aligned. And for the upper part of the drawbridge, we'll use some wooden coffee stirrers. Here you have the final result and a preview on how the different doors will operate. For the winch mechanism that will operate those doors, you will see that I've tried different methods. The first method, using toys parts, gets you a perfect result. However, it will be a bit too small to really operate it. So for a diorama it will be perfect, but if you intend to really operate the door, it will be a bit tricky. Here I'm mixing some toy parts and some wooden dowel that you get in every IKEA build. Again, it gives you a really nice result. However, due to the size, I was not able to make it fully functional. And if you don't want to use toys part, or if you don't have any, you can see that you can easily replicate them with some ice cream sticks. And as you saw in the introduction of this video, this is the methodology that I choose for my build. I will use my drill to drill a hole into the ice cream sticks. Once again, take your time because the ice cream sticks are quite fragile. For this specific build, I will advise you to make 4 different pieces for each lever. But to give it a more realistic look, I'm still using some toy gears. As you can see, the gear itself is not doing anything, but it really adds to the look. For each lever, this will be the final result. You will need one for each door that you want to operate. Only for the drawbridge, in order to be able to rotate it, you will need a round wooden dowel. In order to rotate it, you will need to insert this dowel into an axle. To create this axle, I will simply carve some holes into foam bricks. Then I will glue the dowel directly onto the drawbridge and I will insert an additional plank in order to cover it. This step is not mandatory, but for a better look, you can drill some holes into the square wooden dowels. These holes will be needed to attach the rope that will operate the drawbridge, but you can also simply glue the ropes on the sides. Next, we can go back to the castle gate and we will use the portcullis to exactly mark the area where we want it to slide. And then I will carve a hole in the middle of the castle gate. To do this, I will use my Proxxon hand wire cutter. I'm not sure if it was me that was not using it properly, but it was super difficult to get a proper cut. So in retrospect, if I had to do it again, I will simply use my Proxxon table to cut the castle gate in half, and then I will carve the hole needed for the portcullis. Because at the end, the upper part will be fully covered in wood and the side will be covered in stone, so you will never see the cutting lines. But anyway, after several tries, I was still able to get the result I wanted. But you can still see that the portcullis was not sliding smoothly. In order to resolve this issue, I will simply glue some ice cream sticks into the side of the holes. Here you can see that it's not perfectly smooth, but it's because I'm holding it with one hand while filming with the other one. But I can promise you that at the end of the build it will be super smooth. And now we can get back on the drawbridge. As I want it to be operated from the other side of the castle gate, I will use some screwdriver in order to do a hole through the castle gate. And to make the rope cross the holes, I will simply attach it to the tip of the screwdriver. And be really careful to which side you attach first. You can see here that I attached the wrong one. And now that everything is done, this is how it should operate. Now, to make sure that the opening mechanisms are strongly attached, I will not simply glue them, but I will also carve some holes to insert all the wooden parts. And to carve those holes, you can simply use the tip of the coffee stirrer or from the ice cream stick. Now, before we start the next step, I will advise you to remove all the mechanism and all the rope, but to insert some wooden part into the holes. This will prevent you to glue any bricks over the hole by mistake. And now I will teach you how to make some foam bricks. You will start by using a big piece of XPS foam. It's super important for one side to be completely flat. The first step is to cut some sheet of 1 cm. It's not mandatory, but you can already texture it a bit. To do this, I'm using some foil paper. And here you can see the difference before on the right and after texturing it on the left. For the next step, we will take the sheet of 1 cm and we will cut them into bands of 0.5 cm. Once again, it's super easy to do, but it will take you some time. And finally, we will take all those bonds and we'll cut it again in bricks of half a centimeter. And the result will be bricks of 1 centimeter by half a centimeter with a width of half a centimeter. Of course, you can always adapt those measurements in order to create the bricks of the size that you want. And then, when all your bricks are ready, you will use a box full of stone and shake it all together like that in order to texture all the bricks. Make sure to spend a good evening doing a big batch because you will never have too many. For the next step, we will simply glue all the bricks to the castle gate. For the first row, however, I like to use bigger bricks. I like the look and it gives a bit more stability. Please also make sure to keep some space in order to insert the drawbridge at the last step of this build. Then you can start gluing the bricks that we just made. We'll start by doing the edge of the entrance. And this is where the piece that we cut at the first step will be super useful. Indeed, you can reinsert it while the bricks are drying in order for them to perfectly take the shape of the entrance. And once the entrance is fully dry, you can continue the wall of the castle gate. At some point, in order to add some variety, you will want to make some window, so make sure to not go too high with your wall or to mark the window beforehand. On the side with the drawbridge, instead of the window, I will make some arrow slits. To do it, you will simply have to glue some bricks vertically. And while the bricks are drying, I will cut some square of 7 cm in order to do the side towers. For one tower, you will need 2 cubes. On the bottom cubes, I will do 1 door, on the side I will do 1 arrow slit, and on the opposite side I will do 2 arrow slits. It will be the side next to the drawbridge. And again, for the first row and for the last row, I will use some bigger bricks. For those bigger bricks, I simply double the size. Therefore, you have a brick of 1 by 2 cm with a width of 1 cm. And here you see the result with the doors. And then, before gluing any more bricks, I did all the arrow slits. But be aware that gluing all the small bricks are really time consuming. Therefore, for the other side of the towers, I'm using bigger bricks. Those are 2 by 1 with a width of half a centimeter. For the front and the back of the castle gate, I will be using the smaller bricks, but for the side, I will be using the bigger bricks. Of course, it will depend on what you prefer, but you can really mix and match different types of bricks. For the upper part of the castle gate, I will be using the same coffee stirrers that I use for the drawbridge. For this, I will cut them at 7 cm long. For the second row, I will slightly shift them. In order to do that, the first one will be cut it in half. If the stirrers are a bit longer than the edges, it's not a big deal at all. You will be able to cut them afterward. When you are doing this step, just make sure to not cover the hole for the portcullis. On the side without the drawbridge, it's the interior side, therefore the safe side, and you can do some normal window. They will be made of coffee stirrers at a later stage. And if you want, for the ropes, you can also make some dedicated stoneworks. To do that, you will simply carve the hole into a square brick. And this will be the final result once all the stonework is fully glued and dried. For the roofs, I will cut 2 additional cubes of 7 cm long. And then I will draw a vertical line in the middle of each of them. The above part of this line will be the tip of a triangle, and on the opposite side, on the edges, it will be the other tips. Then, in order to do an angle cut, you can simply adjust the wire of your proxen table the way I just did here. And as you can see, the triangle is just for reference. Alternatively, you can also use the angle cutter from Proxon, or you can also order one from Shifting Lands. While the one of Shifting Lands is a bit cheaper, with the delivery fees it was approximately the same price. The advantage for the Proxon was it came fully mounted. In summary, if you need several stuff from Shifting Land, I will order it from them, but if it's the only tool that you will need, I will order the one from Proxon on Amazon. We will use those cones on a later stage as a basis for the slates of the roofs. If you want some modularity, I will show you another type of roof that you can do. For this new roof, you will simply need a slim square sheet that will be the same size as the tower. So in this case, it will be 7 cm long. And we will again cover it with coffee stirrers, and you will see that I'm using some ice cream stick in order to make a hatch. Again, you will make sure to shift the stirrers on each row. In order to make the hinges of the hatch, you can use the remaining part of the barbecue skewers. To do the reinforcement of the hatch, I will use some coffee stirrers. And finally, I will use the tip of an ice cream stick in order to do a handle. This handle will serve a real purpose because it will be super useful to move around the roof. And then I will glue some foam bricks all around the roof. For a good look, make sure to match the width of the stone from the roof with the stone from the tower. And as you can see, this roof will be super modular. Indeed, you will be able to use it on every tower that we just made, but for example, you will be also able to use it on the floor in some ruins in order to represent the entrance to a cave. And here you have the second floor of each tower. Once again, I made some arrow slits on the exterior side. On the interior side, you will see that I made a window, and on the last side that goes up the castle gate, I made a door, and that's why it is a bit higher to be at the perfect height. And for the final step of the construction, we'll cover the cones with some slits. In order to save time, I bought them directly from Etsy, but you can easily make them yourself by using some cereal box cardboard. Again, this step will be really easy, however, it will take some time. For each row, you will need to cut the edge, following the edge of the cone. And in order to cover the side of the cone, I will simply use a big piece of cardboard. As this step is really long, and if you like this video so far, you can take this opportunity to like it, to comment it, to subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, to share this video with a friend of yours that might be interested in it. It's fully free for you, and it helps me to grow the channel and to continue to propose you new builds every month. So many thanks in advance if you took the time to do it. And here you have an example on how to do the long pieces out of cardboard. And now we are done with all the steps in relation to the construction. And as you can see, everything is super modular. You can split the tower into different buildings and you can exchange all the roof between all the buildings. And here you have the final result for the castle gate. And after all those steps, this should be what you currently have. The next step will be to paint everything. For all the wooden parts, you will need some brown. You will need some grey for all the stones. And finally, I will use some petrol blue for the roof, but you can use any other color that you want. The first step will be super easy. You will do 2 coats of each color. For the gears, I'm using some grey spray paint, but don't use spray paint on the foam because most of them will melt it. And here you have the result after a second coat of each paint. And for the next step, we'll use the dry brushing technique. It's super easy to do and it will give you a nice result. This technique will be the same for every color. First, you will use the basic color and you will mix a bit of white in it. In this video, I will show you only for the wooden part, but the process is exactly the same for each color. When you are ready with the mix, you will take your brush and remove most of the paint on a paper tissue. Therefore, your brush will be dry of paint. That's where the name of the technique is coming from. And then you will paint all the pieces by not applying too much pressure on your brush. The idea here is to only hit the highest part of your pieces and to not put any paints into the recesses. Here you can clearly see the difference after the first coat of dry brushing on the left compared to the basic piece on the right. And when you are done with every pieces, you can rinse and repeat by adding a bit more white into the mix. For each additional coat, you will remove more and more paint and you will apply less and less pressure on your brush. Also, don't worry if your coat is too light when you apply it, as you can see it will dry a bit darker. For a perfect result, my advice is to do at least 3 coats of dry brushing, but you can go as high as 5 or even 7 coats. And this will be your result after a second coat of dry brush. And here you can clearly see the difference between one coat of dry brushing on the right and a second coat on the left. And now I will do a third and final coat for all the wooden parts. Here you can clearly see the result after the second coat and the result after the third coat. And here again, before and after. For all the gears, I will apply a basis of silver, and then I will dry brush some graphite on it without mixing any white. And here is the final result for the gears. And once everything is assembled together, here is the final result for the mechanism. And while I was finishing the painting, I decided to do a walkway for the guards using the big bricks I had left over. And here is the final result after I dry brush everything. My first idea was to not glue the bricks for the walkway, but as you can see it's not a good idea and I will glue it afterward. And now it's time to glue all the wooden parts to the castle. I did not show it previously, but for the window, I simply cut some coffee stirrers into the shape of a window. And now it's finally time to attach the drawbridge. And my advice here is to check that everything is working properly before gluing anything. And now we'll attach the portcullis as well as the bridge to the different mechanisms. And in order to do this, we'll make some ropes out of twine. To easily get a clean piece, you can use a lighter in order to remove all the small pieces. Be really careful to not burn yourself nor your house. Then you will put some glue on the top of the portcullis, and on this glue you will do a knot with the twine. Next, you will remove the excess of the twine, just leave a little bit that you will glue back on the knot in order to strengthen it. And then rinse and repeat on the other side of the portcullis. As you can see, it's working, but it's not super smooth because the portcullis is rubbing against the foam. And that's why I will glue some ice cream stick on the side in order to make the opening super smooth. And as you can see now, it's sliding without any issue. And now it's time to attach the rope into the mechanism. In order to do that, I will put some glue on top of the mechanism, and then I will put the rope on the glue while stretching it as much as possible without raising the gate. And as soon as I have found the sweet spot, I will put some heavy object on the rope in order to keep it in this position while the glue is drying. And then, in order to give strength to the bond, I will add back some glue on top of the ropes. And before I roll up and glue the remaining part of the rope onto the mechanism, I will make sure that everything is working properly. For the drawbridge, I will simply insert the ropes into the holes that I made previously. And then I will do a big knot directly onto the rope. As you can see, the knot is bigger than the hole, so it prevents the rope to go away. But to be extra careful, I will glue the remaining part of the ropes directly onto the knot. It will also give it strength. And again, I will remove any small twine using my lighter. Next, in order to make the rope cross the castle gate, I will use my screwdriver. Be extra careful during this process in order to not damage the stonework. Again, you will want to test everything before gluing the ropes. And here, to attach the rope into the mechanism, the process is exactly the same one that we use for the portcullis. Here, I glued the walkway at the last step because it will be more difficult to access the mechanism now. And you can also see that I've rolled up and glued the remaining part of the ropes directly onto the mechanism. And then, when everything is glued together, you can see how it works. And now you will find some beauty shots now that everything is done. My idea for this build was to make it as modular as possible, and as you can see, the possibilities are quite numerous. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this build, I made another video that you will certainly like. It's about how to make a circular wizard tower out of a Pringle box. Thank you again very much for your support and see you next time.